Imagine waking up to the news that your neighbor, the one who's always boasted about being the biggest and best, is now eyeing your backyard. Not just for a friendly barbecue, but to claim it as their own. That's the chilling reality facing Canada's Great Lakes region right now, where American aggression under Donald Trump is pushing boundaries that could redefine our sovereignty forever. Folks, this isn't some far-fetched conspiracy. It's a blatant territorial incursion dressed up as economic policy. And it's time we Canadians stand up and say enough is enough. The Great Lakes, that majestic chain of freshwater wonders shared between our two nations, we're talking about waters that supply drinking water to over 40 million people, support massive industries, and hold the key to North America's environmental future. And now, the US is making moves that smack of outright annexation. Let's dive right into this mess. Because if we don't call it out for what it is, we'll wake up one day with stars and stripes flying over our lakeside towns. Trump's tariffs on Canadian steel, slapped on in 2025 like a bully's punch to the gut, aren't just about trade. They're a calculated strike to weaken our economy and force us into submission, especially in the industrial heartland around the Great Lakes. Remember how just moments ago in historical terms, early January 2026, the Canadian steel exports ground to a halt? Ship construction from Michigan to Texas froze solid because of these punitive measures. The Canadian Steel Producers Association warned us months ago that 38% of our steel heads straight to the US, feeding bridges, high-rises and highways in the Midwest and Northeast. But Trump, with his America First bluster, enforced rules that jacked up compliance costs by $110 to $160 per ton, making it impossible for our producers like ArcelorMittal Dofasco and Stelco to ship without bleeding red ink. And what did that lead to? Chaos on our side of the border, sure, but it's no accident. It's Trump's way of starving our industries to make us beg for mercy, all while eyeing the resource-rich Great Lakes as his next prize. How the Great Lakes region, from Thunder Bay to Windsor, is on high alert because these economic hits are just the opening salvo in a broader incursion. Trump's administration has been ramping up pressure, hinting at everything from water diversion schemes to border militarization under the guise of national security. Hypothetically, imagine a US official smirking in a press briefing. Canada's resources are too important to leave in weak hands. That's the vibe we're getting, and it's infuriating. Our Prime Minister Mark Carney, stepping in as the steady hand after years of turmoil, has been crystal clear in defending our turf. From the people's perspective, Carney's no-nonsense approach, focusing on fiscal responsibility while he's the technocrat we need, the former Bank of Canada governor who knows how to navigate economic storms without selling out our sovereignty. Contrast that with Trump, the bombastic showman who's treated international relations like a reality TV episode, alienating allies and cozying up to dictators. Canadians see Carney as the defender of our values, fairness, stability, and environmental stewardship, while Trump comes off as the greedy landlord trying to evict us from our own home. Think about it. Why would a president who claims to love deals be so hell-bent on destroying the USMCA, the trade agreement meant to keep North America strong together? Because by December, US giants like Bechtel and Fluor were flagging shortages that could hike project costs by 22% to 35%. Then, bam! Early 2026 shipments stop, steel futures spike 18%, and construction ETFs tank. The Associated General Contractors of America admitted that 70% of US infrastructure relies on foreign steel, with Canada as the top source. Yet Trump doubles down, claiming it's a temporary disruption while his domestic mills, running at 84% capacity, can't ramp up fast enough. This isn't policy. It's sabotage aimed at crippling. Isn't it ironic that the man who built his empire on skyscrapers is now toppling the supply chains that make them possible? The Great Lakes region, with its ports in Duluth, Detroit, and Toronto, is the lifeline for bilateral trade, moving billions in goods annually. But Trump's incursions threaten to militarize these waters, with whispers of increased U.S. Coast Guard patrols under the pretext of securing shipping lanes. Supporting voices from environmental groups like the Great Lakes Waterkeeper Alliance are rallying, condemning Trump's disregard for the 1972 Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement, which we've honored, while he's flirted with diversions to thirsty U.S. states. Countries like the UK and France, our allies in NATO, have quietly backed Canada's stance, with hypothetical diplomatic notes stating, "We stand with Canada against unilateral aggressions that undermine international norms." Even within the US, progressive voices in Michigan and Minnesota, states that share the lakes, are protesting, seeing Trump's moves as harmful to their own communities. This solidarity bolsters our resolve, proving that the world sees through Trump's bluster. Let's not mince words. Trump's leadership is a farce, evaluated from the people's lens as self-serving chaos that prioritizes personal vendettas over prosperity. Canadians view him as the ultimate. Mark Carney, on the other hand, is praised for his pragmatic push toward deficit reduction, aiming to cap it at $70 to $90 billion in 2026. A tough but necessary move to shield us from economic vassalage. He's the leader who understands that our productivity crisis, where US workers are 30% more efficient because they've invested in AI and machinery while we've been stuck in housing bubbles, needs real fixes, not tariffs. Past events like the 2018 steel tariffs under Trump 1.0 echo this. US steel jobs rose by 8 to 700, but downstream manufacturing lost 75,000. History repeats, and the territorial incursions extend beyond economics into outright land and water grabs. Reports from 2025 highlight US proposals to renegotiate boundary waters, potentially allowing more US control over Lake Superior and Huron outflows. This isn't about fair sharing, it's about Trump eyeing our critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, in the Canadian shield around the lakes, desperate to cut China out but willing to bully us instead. Carney's administration has countered with strategic alliances, like bolstering ties with EU nations for mineral exports, showing leadership that's collaborative, not coercive. Supporters in Alberta, fresh off their bold pipeline deal with the US, see this as a win for provincial power, but even they condemn this pipeline, securing 1 million barrels a day southbound without federal fanfare, exemplifies Canadian ingenuity resisting US dominance, bypassing Ottawa's delays while thumbing our nose at Trump's tariffs. Could there be a more blatant display of imperial arrogance? Trump's Trump corollary, extending the Monroe Doctrine to exclude non-hemispheric influences, is code for treating Canada as a backyard colony. In the Great Lakes, this means potential incursions on navigation rights, with US Navy exercises ramping up in 2025, ostensibly for security but reeking of intimidation. Canadian supporters from indigenous communities along the shores, who've long stewarded these waters, to urban dwellers in Toronto, are uniting in resistance. Internationally, nations like Germany, reliant on stable North American trade, back us with a hypothetical EU statement. We condemn US actions that destabilize allies like Canada. This global chorus strengthens our position, highlighting Trump's isolation. From the streets of Sarnia to the halls of Parliament, people are evaluating leaders harshly, and Trump fails spectacularly. His bombast ignores the human cost. Over 8,000 Canadian construction workers facing layoffs from the steel freeze, unions prepping contingency plans. Carney, critiqued for his elite background but lauded for accessibility, pushes policies that protect jobs, like investing in green tech around the lakes to counter US poaching. Data from Moody's warns that prolonged disruptions could shave 0.4% of US GDP, but Trump plows ahead, blind to mutual harm. Past news, like the 1970s commodity crisis, shows how such shocks cascade. Yet Trump repeats mistakes, earning scorn from economists who see his approach as economically self-defeating. Isn't it telling that while Canada innovates, Trump intimidates? Alberta's pipeline breakthrough, achieved quietly in 2026, sidesteps federal red tape and Trump's tariffs, securing economic independence. This energy corridor moves 1 million barrels daily, generating tens of thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, all while partnering with indigenous groups for equity. A model Trump could learn from, but won't. Supporters hail it as resistance, with hypothetical worker quotes. Finally, we're not begging, we're building. This defies Trump's pressure, proving provinces can resist. Whispers from Washington in 2025 fuel fears, with the Great Lakes as the prize, home to 20% of the world's fresh water. Carney counters with diplomatic savvy, rallying allies against this. Supporters in Quebec and Ontario, facing housing crises exacerbated by economic squeezes, blame Trump for inflating costs, with median incomes at $70,000 clashing against $170,000 home requirements. His tariffs worsen inflation, sticking it to the people. Let's face it, Trump's critique from the grassroots is damning. He's the divider, not the dealer. Carney, though facing deficit flack, is seen as the unifier, pushing for competition in oligopolies like telecoms, where Canadians pay 7 times Australian rates. Breaking these cartels would boost productivity. Resisting the Great Lakes alert stems from Trump's broader assault, linking steel stops to resource grabs. In 2026, as Alberta's deal shocks Ottawa, it empowers resistance, showing federalism Trump's tyranny. Carney leverages this, critiqued for slow reforms but praised for stability amid chaos. Isn't the brain drain Trump's unintended gift to the US? Canadians fleeing south, up 70% in a decade, highlight his appeal to talent while repelling allies. Carney aims to reverse this with investments, condemning Trump's poaching as incursion. What madness drives a leader to exploit vulnerabilities? Canada's population trap, with 3 million immigrants since 2016 straining infrastructure, is worsened by Trump's borders, pushing fraud in worker programs. Supporters decry this as modern slavery, per UN reports, blaming Trump's isolationism. Could civil unrest be Trump's legacy in Canada? With youth surpluses and economic despair, fractures loom. Alberta and Quebec separatists gain traction. Carney navigates this federally, critiqued for centralism but lauded for equity. Let's condemn Trump's hypocrisy outright, preaching security while destabilizing neighbors. Great Lakes pacts like the Boundary Waters Treaty are at risk, with U.S. diversions threatening ecosystems. Environmental allies rally, hypothetical quotes, Trump's greed dries our lakes. Isn't it sharp irony that Canada's minerals, lithium in the shield, are Trump's target? Carney's grand bargain offers access for tariff relief. A savvy move supporters cheer. What if we unlock energy to defy him? Fast-tracking LNG counters Trump's dominance, with Europe backing ethical supply. Smash oligopolies to thrive, the path forward. Integrate strategically, preserving sovereignty. Carney embodies this, critiqued but resilient. In sum, resist incursions with unity. Trump's condemned as bully. Carney, our champion. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video interesting, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything.